Welcome to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land you job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Resume Storyteller podcast. My guest today is Lenny Harris. Lenny Harris joined CareerPlace this January as director. He oversees career development and training services, including a team of more than 30 volunteers that help job seekers transition into new careers. He also manages career transition assistance services for executives, including their executive network group. Prior to this, Lenny worked at Illinois Joining Forces, connecting veterans and their families with services and resources throughout the state of Illinois, and also as the Director of Veterans Programs for the National ABLE Network. He is retired from the U.S. Army after 22 years of active military service, has served as a consultant to several civilian employers, and has spoken on the business case for hiring veterans. Lenny, welcome to the program. I appreciate you coming on.
Virginia, thank you very much for having me on your show.
So I gave a quick introduction, but I'd love to have you tell us sort of an overview of what you do day in and day out in this role, this new role.
Well, exactly. Well, CareerPlace is a small nonprofit here in the Chicagoland area, and we focus on helping job seekers land their next career. As I'm sure you're well aware, job search is not a fun job to be in, right? And it can be difficult for folks who are trying to go at it alone. So we work with them through the support of our staff and our volunteers. We have several workshops to help them build up their job search skills. And those volunteer professionals that you mentioned, who are mostly senior executives that have retired from the corporate world, also serve as career coaches for those members of CareerPlace that help them along the way.
Okay, all right. And what you do is so important because every career coach that I have talked to just stresses over and over, this is such a tough journey and that it should not be tackled alone.
Sure,
that sort of having support just makes all the difference. Tell me how you came to be in this position.
Well, I made my transition out of the U.S. Army in the summer of 2014. And, the one nice thing about retiring from the military is when that job is going to stop. Right. So you can already start working towards your next career. So I went back to school, got my MBA, got a civilian certification, and thought, with my years of leadership time in the military and that advanced degree and that civilian certification, that my transition was going to be pretty well set for me. And what I found out was it was a lot more difficult than I thought it was. It took me a good 6 months before I was able to land my first position post-military. But along the way, what it allowed me to do is kind of take a look at what it is I wanted to be when I grew up, right? Or what I wanted to do for the rest of my professional career. And I took a look at why I served in the military for as long as I did. And it was that sense of service, that giving back to others that made me want to do that. So that 6 months that I was in job search, I really kind of used that as a way to guide my career going forward. And I wanted to find a position where I could continue to give back, and that it was a job that was focused on helping others. So I was able to get that position running a veterans employment program at National ABLE Network, where I was able to help other veterans who were in job transition and try to make it easier for them than it was for me.
When you were in your last roles in the military, were you in a career advisory position, or how
Certainly,
did? Or
right?
Okay.
Yeah, I started off as a broadcast journalist, so I was doing radio and television. As you get further along in any career, whether you're in the military or civilian side, you go from being an operator to being in management. So, the second half of my career, I largely served as an advisor to the other folks in the service. So it was a pretty natural transition for me.
Yeah. So you work with, you see veterans, executives, second career people. What do you see as sort of the major challenges that those groups face when they are embarking on a job search or making a career change?
Right. And I think for all job seekers, there's, regardless of where you're at, a couple challenges they face. Number one, I think, is most job seekers don't really understand the process of job seeking or how jobs are sourced. So kind of understanding the system, knowing how an applicant tracking system works, and understanding that still to this day, the most effective way of landing your job is through some kind of referral, through somebody who knows you. I think there's a misconception with so much technology now that, well, if I'm going to job search, I need to spend, 8 hours a day with my laptop in my lap on my couch just applying for jobs over and over and over. So that's one of the things that we try to do here and that I've tried to do throughout my time in helping job seekers is help them understand the process of how jobs are sourced. Because if you know the system, then you can work with the system.
Yeah, the system and the rules.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there something that you feel like your clients are most surprised by? Maybe it is that technology's there, but old school is still works better, or what?
Sure.
What do you think catches people off guard?
Yeah, I think, some of the aha moments that I get, I do a block of training strictly on the applicant tracking system and how that works, because most people don't really understand. They know that they apply online, but they don't know what happens to it after that.
And it changes so much.
And it does, right. But, when I explain to them, a computer takes a look at a job description and has certain keywords that it's looking for, and then it matches that with your resume and sees how many of those keywords it finds. And I explain to them that, at least for when you're applying online, you need to try to match some of those keywords from the job description. And, I get the question, does that mean I have to change my resume every time? I said, only if you want a good match, If you don't want to be a good match for the job, then no, you don't. But I explained to them it's not like you have to rewrite your resume for every job you apply for online. It's just tweaking some of the wording in there to make sure it matches the job description.
How do you advise people in terms of, we say old school referrals work, but then we're saying, but you have to understand ATS. Where do you feel like the relationship comes into the play and then ATS? Because sometimes you do have to go through both channels.
Of course,
what are your thoughts?
Of course you do. And as I mentioned, still the most effective way of landing a position and the most preferred way by hiring managers, according to Silk Road, I read their source of hire report every year, is through referrals. And I explain that to folks that, you need to be spending a lot of your time becoming that known candidate. But you're not going to abandon any avenue of approach that can help lead you towards that interview. But I like to ask questions whenever I'm giving this workshop. I ask people, you've heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And I ask how many people believe that when it comes to job seeking. Of course, most of them raise their hand, and I say, but that's not entirely true. What is true is who knows you, not who you know. That's important. And the only way to become that known candidate is not just to go to a networking event and swap business cards with somebody, but you need to follow up with them so that you can have a conversation. They can get to know more about you and what your skills are, what your experience is, what your character is like. That's what's going to help lead to that referral more than just swapping a business card at a bar during some networking event.
It's a really important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give someone who's, thinking about making a career move? Maybe they're not actively job hunting at this point.
Sure.
Where should they start?
Well, for folks that kind of are in that period where they're not exactly sure what they want to do or are not happy with what they're doing, I always recommend they sit down and map out 3 things, which is their skills, what they're good at, and what people come to them for advice for, their goals, what is it they want to do and where is it they want to go, and then finally their needs. What is it that they need to have, whether it's, personal fulfillment or financial stability, whatever those needs are.
Right.
And, imagine a 3-sided scale, right? Each one of those goes on that scale and one's going to weigh heavier than the other. And it's up to those individuals to determine what's most important to them. Is it the goals, it's job satisfaction, or, is it the financial stability? Because when you're making a career change, one of the challenges is if you're going into a new field, you can't expect to start in that new field at the level you left your old one. And that can be a challenge for folks. They might be at a senior level in finance and now they want to go into nonprofit. Well, you're not going to probably start at the senior level. You're going to start a little bit lower.
Right.
Is that going to...
So if the salary need is way greater than the goal, then you have to... And that's different for everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an individual decision for each person.
So map out what people seek them out for. That's their skills, their goals, or what their dream opportunity might look like. And then their needs sounds like they're deal breakers. This is what
exactly right.
Absolutely must be met a threshold. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any different advice you would give to someone who is engaged in a job hunt and is just not working out?
Well, what's that definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over.
Over and over. Right.
Right.
True.
So, if you're in the job hunt process and things aren't working out for you, then you need to try something different and get out of your comfort zone. We talk about networking, right? And I hate calling it networking because that kind of has, for some folks, a negative connotation.
Yeah.
So what I call it is, and whenever I do the workshop, I call it building relationships, because that's really what it's about. It's probably the one thing that job seekers probably hate doing the most, right?
I like building relationships much better than the word networking. I'm going to steal that from you.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's not trademarked or anything, but if you
there
want
you go. Okay,
to
good.
donuts my way, that's fine too. So.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, if you're doing it solo, maybe you need to work with somebody else. Or if you're working with somebody else and it's not working, then maybe you need to find a new person. You're going out to events and you're meeting people and you're building those relationships and that's working, maybe you need to go to different types of events or meet with different people. So, there's lots of different strategies and skills involved in job seeking, and you need to try to use as many of those strategies as possible.
Mix it up, get some more tools.
Sure, exactly. I mean, it really is, and you know this, I'm sure, it really is a certain skill set to be an effective job seeker.
Yeah, and it's so multifaceted because it's interviewing, it's building relationships, it's documents, it's building the right relationships. There's just so many components to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure you get this all the time, people that go in a number of different directions and they're figuring out, what do I want to be when I grow up? Or I could do this or I could do that. What advice do you have for them?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that we utilize here for our members is a program called Strengths Finders.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I know there's an S in the middle of that, but I just can't say it. So it's Strengths Finders.
Strengths Finders, yes.
Which it's an online test, and it'll come back and kind of tell you the top 5 strength areas that you have. And what's interesting sometimes is folks will come in and say, well, I want to do A. This is what I really want to do. And then we'll have them take the Strength Finders, and it'll say, you know what, that's probably not something that you're going to excel at based on the strengths that you have. Maybe you would rather work towards B instead of A. So, if you're kind of lost in where you're going, or you're thinking about making a career move, which is a really brave decision to make, especially the further along you are in your career, I would find out what your strengths are and whether you're going to be successful or what you might be successful at it, and target yourself towards that.
For my listeners who don't live in Chicago, where's the best place to get a hold of a Strengths Finders test?
Well, I
took it back before it was online. I did it all paper-based a million years ago.
Yeah.
So.
It's online now, so you can just Google that. And, there is a charge to it. I think it's like $20 or something like that. I don't know. But there are other strength assessment tools on the Internet. But that's the one that we use, and it's pretty effective when we sit down and start working with folks.
Okay. Have you found that when people do identify their 5 strengths, they come up with some paths that they never thought of, or it just helps them to determine which of the 3 paths that maybe makes the most sense?
Yeah, I think it falls into one of 2 buckets, because I took Strength Finders myself. And for me, what it did is validated kind of what I already thought. And I think with a lot of folks, that's what happens is they kind of know what their strengths are, and it just kind of validates that, yes, you are correct in thinking that. But for those folks that aren't really sure, or maybe have a belief on what they think is their strength, and it turns out to be something different, it can be very enlightening and very helpful, too, to realize, oh, wow, I guess I'm better in the leadership category than I thought. Maybe I should look for a position of, in management or something like that.
Yes, right, versus individual contributor. I like Strengths Finders because it's one of the only tests that focuses on what you're good at versus what you need to work on.
Exactly.
The other ones I feel like, now I have to go develop myself in this area. I can list. That one makes you feel good about yourself when you're done.
Sure.
So I'm sure this is something you come across given your audience. Let's talk about age discrimination, because I see it. I hear concerns about it all the time. I'm not a job seeker, so I'm not on the front lines with that. What are your thoughts on hiring practices with age discrimination, and then sort of some strategies that people can use to remove that from their process or from their journey?
Sure. Of course, we all know that Age Discrimination Act says that you can't discriminate hiring based on age, but it happens anyway, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And, we all have barriers to employment. Everybody has a barrier to employment, whether it be, in my case, my status as a veteran was a barrier to employment because there was such a misunderstanding about that. So, understanding that while age discrimination in employment is not legal but happens, again, you have to kind of work within the system that's there. So, the advice that I give is, focus on your experience and also update your skills. Because, part of the concern with older workers is they're not up to date on what's going on. We're using this modern technology, or we're focusing a lot of our marketing efforts on social media, and they're not even on Facebook. But, you need to figure out what is necessary, what is needed in the job market today. It may be different than when you started your career 20 or 30 years ago. But simply, for example, having a LinkedIn profile. Some of our older clients are like, yeah, I don't understand that stuff. I said, that's fine. If you don't want to find a job, then you don't need one, but you need to demonstrate your value and that you're updated with today's marketplace. Start a blog.
Just eliminate that potential for age discrimination.
Right. And even some simple things that might identify you off the bat that you're a little bit of an older worker, even simply your email account, not including numbers in there that are the year you were born, or,
right.
If anybody has still got a resume with an AOL account on it.
As the AOL, yep. Okay. All right. Yeah. No AOL, no 1952 on your email. Right.
Right.
Okay.
But,
you're right. And those are little things. Those are doable.
Sure. Of course.
If someone came in and said, what are 2 things I absolutely have to have as I embark on this job search, what would you say? Well,
number 1, I would say a plan.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that we work with our members here is to develop a job search plan, to have an idea of what you're going to do each day and where that's going to lead to. I'm not a hunter myself, but I use a hunting analogy when I talk about job search. And if you're out deer hunting and there's a deer that's, 300 yards away and you have 2 items there, a shotgun and a rifle, which one's going to be more effective in taking down that deer? It's going to be the rifle, right? But too many people job search with a shotgun. They just kind of throw things out there and hope something sticks. I'm just going to apply to a whole bunch of jobs and see if something comes back. Or I'm just going to go to a whole bunch of networking events and see if I can meet some folks and develop relationships. But if you have a plan, to say, okay, well, these are the types of jobs and the types of companies I want to work for. Then you can focus your efforts on those companies and those jobs. Or if these are the type of folks that I want to meet, you don't go to an event where it's a bunch of IT folks if you want to get into marketing, right?
Right.
Too many times people just kind of go in every direction hoping to hit something.
Sure. Like you said, throw something against the wall and see what sticks. How detailed is the plan? Is it granular to like week 1, do this, week 2, do that? Or is it targeted jobs, targeted companies, targeted people?
Yeah, it's more general.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a roadmap, but doesn't have to be set in stone, but at least it gives you some direction.
Right. Anybody's job search plan needs to be fluid because, something will happen today that will change what you were planning to do tomorrow.
That's right. How many hours a day do you think it's really possible to be focused on job searching? When people are out of work, they go crazy and feel like if they don't put in 8 hours, but then you spend 6 hours applying online, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, and there's a school of thought that, job search is a full-time job. And I caution against that.
I do.
But at the same time, I don't say, okay, we'll only do it for 5 hours a day or only, it's going to depend. And keep in mind when I talk about your job search process and your plan, the time that you spend is not just looking for jobs online, right? It's, okay, I'm going out to coffee with somebody. That's an hour. So that's an hour of job search right there.
Right.
Or I'm going to a workshop that's 2 hours. That's 2 hours of job search time. And if you're wondering what should I be doing or I don't know what I should be doing, one of the pieces of advice that I give folks is, you've got that LinkedIn profile. Now go find some LinkedIn groups that are targeted around the job that you're looking for and join those groups, because what happens then is when somebody posts an article in there, those articles come to your news feed and you can use that as professional development. That's one great way. You mentioned the older workers to stay on top of what's happening in industries is spend less time on Facebook looking at whose kid just learned to walk. And go to LinkedIn and look through the news feed there and find out about the latest HR system that's been put in place and do some professional development as part of your job search as well.
Right. And then you can take those articles and reshare them, and then you have established a consistent presence on your LinkedIn site as well.
Of course. And you become, a de facto subject matter expert because you're sharing information with others.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned the plan. Is there anything else that you feel like a job seeker must absolutely have, or will everything sort of flow from the plan?
Well, I think that the plan is important, but I would certainly encourage job seekers to understand that it doesn't have to be a solo project, right? that it's a project that you can work on others with, and try to find an organization, and they're all over the place, find an organization in your area to work with somebody, because if nothing else, it's nice to have a system of support as you're going through that process.
That's right. No, I agree. All right. So this is sort of a side question, but I talk to a lot of people that think they know what they want to do, but they're a little nervous because it's a complete, it's sort of a 180,
Sure.
Sometimes career pivot. But, there's a lot of talk about trying something on the side, sort of, I hate the term side hustle, but just trying something out without diving in completely. Do you coach people on that? What are your thoughts on the idea of testing the waters in a new career without going in fully?
Sure. And, great timing for you to ask me that question, because you mentioned early on that we also have what's called the Executive Network Group of Greater Chicago.
Yeah.
And each month we have guest speakers come in. And just last week we had speakers come in and talk about this, and about the gig economy is what it's called,
right,
where you're going from one gig to the next, and there's a lot more, consultant jobs or temporary, project-based jobs. And, I was doing a little research into it before we had the guest speaker in, and there was an article from Intuit that suggested that by 2020, 40% of workers will kind of be in that gig employment cycle.
How many are now? Do you know? Well, we must be close to that. That's not very far away.
I don't know. But, it was interesting listening to the speakers come up and talk. It's not for everybody, certainly. But a couple of the things that they stressed was, if you're looking to do that, you need to be kind of a subject matter expert in that area, because companies are looking to, complete a project, or they're looking for some specific skill set. You need to be an expert in that skill set if you're looking to make a living doing it, at least. And they suggested that you're probably going to spend about 25% of your time building a client base, building those relationships, because that's how you get the next gig, is through the relationships that you have. So, if you're one of those that doesn't like the whole building relationship thing, might not be the best course for you.
That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
So what is next for you? You just took this new job. What do you see around the bend for you?
It's funny because my first job, when I made that transition, I mentioned running the Veterans Employment Assistance Program. My boss sat me down and kind of went over a plan with me. Where do you see yourself in a year, and where do you see yourself in 5 years? And CareerPlace is actually a subsidiary of that company. And when she said, when she said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I said, well, I'm really hoping the director out of CareerPlace retires so I can go run that place. And here I am.
Oh, my goodness. Careful what you wish for.
So I guess I'm ahead of schedule. But
there you go. You can sit back. You don't need a plan now.
That's right. Yeah, it works. But, now I'm looking at short-term, trying to make this organization even stronger than it is, even better than it is, and really working to bring as many job seekers in here as we can. Because, working in the nonprofit sector, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the satisfaction that it gives you in helping others.
That's right.
So,
giving back. Absolutely.
Yeah, so really working on trying to get as many folks in here that we can help along the way, because what a difference it makes, when you help somebody and they land a job, and now their family is taken care of, and they can send their kids to college because they have the income to help pay for it. You can't put a dollar value on that.
That's right. No, it's so rewarding. And for people that are interested in learning more, the website is mycareerplace.org. Is that the best place for people to find out more information, or is there any other place that you recommend they go to?
Sure. They can go to mycareerplace.org, or they can call our office line, which is 224-836-7200, to find out more information about what we do here at CareerPlace.
Perfect. Lenny, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for
joining me.
The opportunity.
Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
You've been listening to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's SCIM online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.